The first thing I registered was the screaming. Not my own, though my throat was raw and my ears were ringing, but someone else's. A woman's voice, high and jagged, cutting through the fog of sleep like a blade. I sat up so fast my head spun, the sheets tangling around my legs, and I was already reaching for the phone on my nightstand before I remembered that I didn't have a nightstand in my apartment. I didn't have a phone with a cracked screen and a neon green case. I didn't have a 17-year-old body with knees that didn't ache and a face that didn't have crow's feet. The room swam into focus. Lavender walls, a poster of a boy band I'd stopped liking when I was 15. A pile of textbooks that had never been opened. My childhood bedroom. The same one I'd left behind at 18 and never slept in again. The screaming came from downstairs, followed by a crash that made the floorboards vibrate. I scrambled out of bed, my bare feet slapping against the cold wood. And I knew exactly what I was about to walk into. I'd done it before. In my previous life, I'd stayed in bed and covered my ears and told myself it wasn't my problem. I'd let Chloe's secret fester until it burst, until the police were at our door and my father was crying in his study, and my mother was packing her bags. Not this time. I threw open my bedroom door and ran. The stairs were steep and creaky, and my legs were too long for the body I was in. I nearly tripped on the third step, catching myself on the banister with a grip that left splinters in my palm. I didn't slow down. The kitchen was at the end of the hallway, and I could see the light on, stark and yellow against the pre-dawn gray. Another crash, this one metallic, like a pot hitting the floor. Chloe's voice shrill and trembling. I don't care what you think you found. It's not mine, and if you don't believe me, then maybe I should just leave. And then my mother's voice, lower but no less frantic. Chloe, we're not accusing you. We're just trying to understand. I barreled into the kitchen and stopped dead. The table was overturned. The chairs scattered like fallen dominoes. A shattered mug lay near the stove, its contents seeping into the grout, dark brown and glistening. My father stood in the corner, his phone pressed to his ear, his face ashen. My mother had her hands up, palms out, the way you'd calm a wild animal. And Chloe was in the center of it all, her hair a tangled mess, her robe hanging off one shoulder. A butter knife in her hand that she wasn't using but wasn't putting down either. She saw me and her eyes narrowed. Oh great, she spat. Perfect, Emily, here to judge me. Because that's what you're best at, isn't it, Em? Standing in the doorway with your perfect little face, pretending like you're better than everyone else. I didn't react. I'd been called worse. I'd been told I was cold, distant, unfeeling. I'd been told I was a coward. I'd believed it for a while. But not anymore. Put the knife down, Chloe, I said. My voice was calm. Too calm. I barely recognized it as she laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. Or what, you're going to run and tell Mom and Dad about my secret? Go ahead. See if they believe you. They never believe you. They never. $600 in your backpack, I said. 3 copies of the AP History exam. A burner phone with contacts from 4 different schools. And a forged signature on the Langley family's check for the country club gala. Dated last Friday. The knife slipped from her fingers and clattered onto the tile. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear my own heartbeat, thudding hard and steady in my chest. My father lowered his phone. My mother's hands dropped to her sides. Chloe stared at me with an expression I'd never seen on her face before. Not anger, not fear, but something rawer. Betrayal. Pure, blistering betrayal. How do you know that? She whispered. That I know a lot of things, I said. I know you're selling test answers to juniors from 3 different high schools. I know you're skimming money from the country club account by forging invoices. I know you've been doing it for 8 months. And I know you were planning to use the money for your secret savings account at the bank downtown. Account number ending in 4872. I paused. I also know that you told Mom and Dad I was the one who broke the neighbor's window last summer, when you were the one who threw the rock. But that's not really the point right now, is it? Chloe took a step back, her bare heel landing in the coffee puddle. She didn't seem to notice. You've been spying on me, she breathed. You've been going through my stuff. No, I said. I've been paying attention. There's a difference. My father cleared his throat. His voice when it came was hoarse and cautious. Emily, what are you talking about? How do you know these things and why didn't you say anything before? Because I was afraid I wanted to say. Because I thought if I kept quiet it would go away. Because I didn't want to be the one to break our family. But those were the excuses of a girl who hadn't watched everything burn. I wasn't that girl anymore. I'm saying it now, I replied. That's what matters. Chloe lunged at me. It happened so fast that my mother screamed, and my father shouted, and I didn't have time to move. Her hands closed around my upper arms, her nails digging in so hard I felt blood well up. You're ruining everything, she hissed through gritted teeth. Everything I've built. Everything I've worked for. You've always been jealous of me, and now you're trying to destroy me. I grabbed her wrists and held them, my grip surprisingly strong for a 17-year-old who'd spent 10 years sitting at a desk. I'm not jealous of you, I said. I'm scared of you. There's a difference too. She shoved me hard, and I stumbled back, hitting the edge of the counter with a jolt that sent pain shooting up my spine. But I didn't fall. I'd been knocked down before, and I'd learned how to get back up. This time, I stood my ground. The truth was going to come out eventually, I said. It always does. The only question is whether it'll destroy everyone else on the way down, or whether you'll stand in front of it and take responsibility. Chloe's face contorted. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. My mother stepped forward slowly, carefully, and put a hand on Chloe's shoulder. Sweetheart, she said, her voice trembling. Is what Emily said true? Did you really? Don't touch me, Chloe snapped, shaking her off. She looked at my father, then at me, then back at my father. You're going to believe her the one who spends every weekend locked in her room, reading books, never going out, never having any friends. She doesn't know anything. She's making this up because she's bitter and lonely, and she wants to drag me down to her level. My father didn't say anything. He was staring at the floor, at the shattered mug and the dark puddle of coffee and the tiny shards of ceramic that had scattered across the tile. I watched him process what I'd said, what Chloe had just accused me of, what was happening to his family in real time. He looked up, and his eyes met mine. Emily, he said quietly, where did you get this information? I met his gaze and didn't blink. I overheard phone calls. I saw bank statements in the mail. I found the USB drive in her room when she asked me to clean her closet. All lies. All true. In another life, I'd found them too late. In this one, I'd known exactly where to look. I didn't tell you because I wanted to give her the chance to come clean herself. But she didn't. So I'm telling you now. Chloe let out a sound that was half cry, half scream. She grabbed her phone from the counter and threw it at the wall. It shattered on impact, pieces of glass and plastic raining down like confetti. My mother flinched. My father stepped forward, finally, and took Chloe by the arm. That's enough, he said, his voice firm. We're going to sit down and talk about this calmly. No more yelling. No more throwing things. Emily, go upstairs and... No, I said. I'm not going upstairs. I'm staying right here. Because this isn't just about Chloe. This is about all of us. And if we don't deal with it now, it's going to get worse. A lot worse. My father's jaw tightened. My mother looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. And Chloe was looking at me like she wanted to set me on fire. She wrenched her arm out of my father's grip and stepped toward me, her voice low and venomous. You think you've won, she whispered. You think this is over. I've got dirt on you too, Emily. I've got things I could tell them that would make you look just as bad as me. Maybe worse. I smiled. I couldn't help it. It wasn't a happy smile, and it wasn't a cruel one. It was the smile of someone who'd already seen the worst that could happen and knew she could survive it. Go ahead, I said. Tell them. I've got nothing to hide. Chloe's face went slack. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. For the first time since I walked into the kitchen, she was speechless. And in that silence, I heard my phone buzz in my pocket. I pulled it out. The caller ID was an unknown number. I answered, keeping my eyes locked on Chloe's, and the voice on the other end said, Emily Chun. This is Detective Marlowe from the County Police Department. We have a few questions regarding your sister Chloe's involvement in an ongoing investigation. Is now a good time to talk? I didn't flinch. I didn't even blink. It's the perfect time, I said. And Chloe knew in that moment, Exactly what I'd done. Detective Marlowe's voice was calm, professional. The kind of voice that had delivered bad news to 1,000 families before mine. Miss Chun, I'm calling in reference to a tip we received regarding financial irregularities at the Langley Country Club. We've been investigating for several weeks, and your name came up in connection with some forged documentation. Chloe's eyes went wide. She took a step toward me, her hand reaching for the phone, but I turned my shoulder and blocked her. I'm happy to help, I said into the receiver. But I think you should speak to my sister directly. She's standing right here. I held out the phone. Chloe stared at it like it was a live grenade. My mother made a small, wounded noise. My father stepped forward, his hand outstretched, but I shook my head. She needs to answer for herself, I said. That's the only way this ends. Chloe snatched the phone from my hand and pressed it to her ear. Her face cycled through a series of expressions: defiance, disbelief, dawning horror. As Detective Marlowe spoke, I couldn't hear the words, but I didn't need to. I'd already imagined this conversation 100 times. I knew the questions he was asking. I knew the evidence he had. And I knew that Chloe's lies were about to crumble. I don't know what you're talking about, she said, her voice high and brittle. I've never been to the Langley Country Club. I don't even know where it is. A pause. No, that's not, I didn't. Another pause, longer this time. Her face went pale, then red, then pale again. You can't do that. You can't just, I'm a minor. I have rights. You can't question me without my parents. Her voice cracked. She lowered the phone, her hand trembling, and looked at our father. Dad, she said, and for the first time since I'd entered the kitchen, she sounded like the scared 17-year-old she was. They have the invoices. They have bank records. They said they're coming to the house. The phone slipped from her fingers and hit the floor with a dull thud. The call was still connected. I could hear Detective Marlowe's voice, tinny and distant, asking if anyone was there. I picked it up, brought it to my ear, and said, "We'll be here. She'll be here." Then I ended the call and slipped the phone back into my pocket. The kitchen had gone very quiet. The coffee puddle was spreading, seeping under the refrigerator, and the shattered mug was still lying in pieces. My mother was gripping the counter like she needed it to stay upright. My father had his hands on his hips, staring at the ceiling, his jaw working like he was chewing on words he couldn't bring himself to say. Chloe was breathing in short, ragged gasps, her chest heaving, her eyes darting around the room like she was looking for an exit that didn't exist. She found me instead. You did this, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. You called them. You told them everything. I told them the truth, I said. There's a difference. She lunged at me again, but this time my father was faster. He caught her by the shoulders and held her back, his grip firm but not rough. Chloe, stop, he said. Just stop. You don't understand, she screamed, struggling against him. She's been plotting this for months. She's been collecting evidence, waiting for the perfect moment to destroy me. She hates me. She's always hated me. I stood very still, watching her thrash against our father's hold. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I'd done enough defending in my previous life, defended myself against her accusations, defended her lies to our parents, defended the fragile peace of our household until there was nothing left to defend. I was done making excuses. Chloe, I said quietly, I don't hate you. I never did. But I'm not going to let you burn this family down to save yourself. You've been doing that for years and I've been letting you. Not anymore. She went still. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her mascara smudged into dark crescents beneath her lower lashes. She looked like a wild animal that had been cornered and knew it had nowhere to run. You don't know what you've done, she said. You have no idea what's going to happen now. I know exactly what's going to happen, I replied. The police are going to come. They're going to ask questions. And you're going to have to answer them. That's all I know. That's all I need to know. My mother finally spoke, her voice hoarse and trembling. Emily, why didn't you come to us first? Why did you have to involve the police? I turned to face her. My mother had always been the peacekeeper, the one who smoothed things over, who looked the other way when things got uncomfortable. I loved her, but love didn't mean blind loyalty. Because if I'd come to you, I said, you would have tried to fix it quietly. You would have called a lawyer, made some calls, swept it under the rug. And then the same thing would have happened again, because Chloe would have learned that there are no consequences for what she does. I wasn't going to let that happen. Not this time. My mother's face crumpled. She opened her mouth, closed it, then turned away, her shoulders shaking. My father released Chloe and walked over to her, putting a hand on her back. They stood like that, the two of them, a unit I'd always been on the outside of. In my previous life, that had hurt. In this one, I understood that it was just the way things were. Chloe was their golden child. The one who'd always shone so bright that they'd never noticed how many shadows she cast. Chloe took a step toward the back door. "I'm leaving," she said. "I'm not going to be here when they come. I'm not going to let them take me." "Where would you go?" I asked. "You don't have anywhere to go. Your friends are all at school right now, and even if you called them, they're not going to risk their own reputations to hide you. The only person who's ever protected you is standing right here, and I'm done." She stopped at the door, her hand on the handle. She looked back at me, and there was something in her expression that I hadn't expected. Not anger, not hatred, fear. Real, genuine fear. The kind that stripped away all the bravado and left only a scared little girl underneath. "Emily," she said, her voice cracking, "please. Don't do this to me. I'll do anything. I'll stop. I'll tell the truth. Then tell them," I said. "Tell them when they get here. That's all I'm asking. Tell the truth." She stared at me for a long moment. Then she turned and pulled the door open, letting in a rush of cool morning air. The sun was rising over the neighbor's fence, casting long shadows across the driveway. A car was already pulling up. Not a police car, but a sleek black sedan with tinted windows. I recognized it. In my previous life, that car had belonged to a lawyer from the firm my father had used to try to cover up Chloe's mess. He was too late this time. The door swung shut behind Chloe, and she walked toward the car with slow, deliberate steps. Through the window, I saw the driver step out. Not a lawyer, but Detective Marlowe himself, in a rumpled suit and tired eyes. He said something to Chloe that I couldn't hear, and she nodded, her shoulders sagging. She didn't resist when he opened the back door and gestured for her to get in. My mother let out a sob. My father turned away, his hand covering his mouth. I walked to the window and watched as Detective Marlowe closed the door behind Chloe and walked around to the driver's side. Before he got in, he glanced up at the house and met my eyes through the glass. He gave me a small nod. I nodded back. The sedan pulled away, and Chloe disappeared around the corner. That I stood there for a long time, watching the empty street. The bird that had been singing earlier had stopped. The sun was fully up now, bright and unforgiving, painting everything in harsh yellow light. My reflection stared back at me from the glass, a 17-year-old girl with dark circles under her eyes and a splinter in her palm, and a heart that was beating too fast for someone who'd just done something so final. "What happens now?" my mother asked from behind me. Her voice was small, lost. That I turned around. My father was still standing by the counter, his face a mask of controlled devastation. My mother was wiping her eyes with the back of her hand, her mascara streaking down her cheeks. They were looking at me like I was a stranger, like I'd walked into their house and taken their daughter away. "We wait," I said. "We answer the phone when it rings. We tell the truth no matter how hard it is. And we try to rebuild." My father let out a breath I hadn't realized he'd been holding. "Emily," he said, "who are you? I don't recognize you right now." I walked over to the counter and picked up a dish towel. I knelt down and started cleaning up the coffee puddle, piece by piece. The ceramic shards were sharp, and I cut my finger on one of them, a thin line of red that bloomed and ran down my palm. I didn't stop. "I'm the person who finally got tired of watching things fall apart," I said. "I'm the person who decided that being quiet isn't the same as being kind. And I'm the person who's going to make sure that we don't end up losing everything we have left." My phone buzzed again. I wiped my hands on my jeans and pulled it out. It was a text from an unknown number. "This is Detective Marlowe. Your sister is in custody. She's asking to see you. Are you available to come to the station?" I read the message twice. Then I typed back, "I'll be there in 20 minutes. I stood up and looked at my parents. My mother had stopped crying, but her eyes were still wet. My father was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Something between pride and fear, and the dawning realization that his daughter was no longer the quiet girl he'd thought he knew. "I need to go," I said. "She asked for me." My mother shook her head. "You can't go there alone. I'll come with you." "No," I said. "This is between me and her. You trust me or you don't. But I need you to trust me right now." There was a long silence. Then my father stepped forward and put his hand on my shoulder. His grip was warm and steady. "Go," he said. "We'll be here when you get back." I nodded, grabbed my jacket from the hook by the door and walked out. The morning air hit my face, cool and clean. The street was quiet, the neighbors still asleep, the world going about its business like nothing had happened. But everything had happened. Everything was happening. And I was walking straight into the middle of it, one step at a time. The police station was 8 blocks away. I walked because I needed the time to think. I needed to feel my feet on the pavement, the rhythm of my own breathing, the steady beat of my heart. I needed to remind myself that I'd done this before in a different life with a different outcome. This time I knew what I was walking into. The station was a squat brick building with a flickering sign, and a lobby that smelled like stale coffee and old carpet. Detective Marlowe met me at the front desk and led me down a narrow hallway to a small interview room. Through the window I could see Chloe sitting at a metal table, her hands cuffed in front of her, her hair a tangled mess. She looked up when I walked in and her eyes met mine. "Emily," she said. Her voice was raw, scraped clean of all her earlier venom. "You came." I sat down across from her. "You asked me to." "I know," she said. "I know I don't deserve it. But I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you a long time ago." I leaned forward. My heart was pounding but my voice was steady. "I'm listening." She took a breath and the words that came out made my blood run cold. I wasn't the only one involved. There are other people. People who are going to come after you now. People who don't want the truth to come out. She looked down at her hands, at the cuffs that bound them together. "I didn't want to tell you. But you're the only one who ever showed up. So I'm telling you now. Be careful, Emily. They know you're the one who started this. And they're not going to stop until they've buried you too." The words hung in the air between us, thick and poisonous. I stared at Chloe across the metal table, at the cuffs that bound her wrists, at the hollowed-out look in her eyes that I'd never seen before. In my previous life, she'd never warned me about anything. She'd let me walk into the fallout blind, and I'd spent years picking shrapnel out of my skin. But this was different. This was her, finally, telling me something that wasn't a lie. "Who are they?" I asked. My voice was steady, but my palms were slick against the table. Chloe shook her head, her hair falling across her face. "I don't know all of them. I never met them face to face. They reached out through encrypted messages, burner phones. They gave me money, gave me the exam keys, told me where to drop the forged invoices." She laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "I thought I was so smart. I thought I was running the show. But I was just a pawn. A useful idiot." "Names?" I pressed. "Any names? Anything you remember?" She looked up at me, and her eyes were wet. "There's a guy. He called himself Marcus. He's the one who set up the payment structure, the bank accounts, the whole operation. I don't know his real name, but I have a phone number. It's the only one I ever used. It's in my phone, the one I threw against the wall. But I memorized it. I don't know why I memorized it. I just did." She rattled off a string of digits, and I typed them into my phone with shaking fingers. The number was saved. I didn't recognize the area code. "What else?" "There's a meeting," Chloe said. "Tomorrow night. At the old warehouse on Mercer Street. I was supposed to drop off the next batch of exam keys and pick up payment. They don't know I've been caught. They think I'm still in the game." She paused, her voice dropping to barely a whisper. "If they find out I talked to you, Emily, they'll come for me. They'll come for all of us." I leaned back in my chair, my mind racing. In my previous life, I'd never known about Marcus or the warehouse or the encrypted messages. I'd thought Chloe was a solo act, a selfish girl who'd made terrible choices. But now I understood. She'd been part of something bigger. something that had been running in the background while I'd been too focused on my own survival to notice that I stood up. I have to go. Emily, wait. Chloe reached out, her cuffed hands grazing my sleeve. There's something else. Something I didn't tell the detective, because I didn't think it mattered. But now I think it might. I sat back down. Tell me. She swallowed hard. Marcus isn't just some random guy. He's connected to Dad's firm. I overheard him talking to someone once, and he mentioned a partner's name. Mr. Whitfield. He said Mr. Whitfield had a stake in the operation. That's why I thought I was safe. Because I thought Dad would protect me if it ever came out. The name hit me like a physical blow. Mr. Whitfield was my father's senior partner, the man who'd recommended him for the regional director position. The man who'd been at our dinner table 100 times, who'd brought me gifts on my birthdays, who'd smiled and patted my head and called me the quiet one. The man who, in my previous life, had walked away from my father's career without a second thought when the scandal broke. He hadn't been collateral damage. He'd been the one pulling the strings. Are you sure? I asked. Are you absolutely sure? Chloe nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. I'm sure. I heard him say Whitfield's name. He said, Whitfield's going to be pissed if we don't deliver on time. That was 3 weeks ago, the day before I dropped off the first batch of forged invoices. I stood up again, this time with more urgency. You need to tell Detective Marlowe everything you just told me. Every single detail. Do you understand? She shook her head. I can't. If I do, they'll what? I cut her off. You're already in custody. You're already facing charges. The only way out of this is through. You cooperate, you tell them everything, and maybe they go easier on you. You keep hiding things and you'll be the one they hang for all of it. Is that what you want? Chloe looked down at her hands. Her shoulders were shaking. No, she said quietly. That's not what I want. Then tell him, I said. Right now. I'll wait outside. I walked out of the interview room and found Detective Marlowe in the hallway, leaning against the wall with a cup of coffee in his hand. He looked up when I approached, his tired eyes scanning my face. She talk? Yeah, I said. But you're not going to like what she has to say. I told him everything. Marcus, the encrypted messages, the warehouse, Mr. Whitfield. His expression didn't change much. He was a professional and professionals don't flinch, but I saw his grip tighten on the coffee cup. This is bigger than we thought, he said. Whitfield is a powerful man. He's got connections everywhere. If he's involved, this isn't just about exam keys and forged invoices anymore. This is organized. Then you need to act fast, I said. Tomorrow night. The warehouse on Mercer Street. If we wait, they'll know something's wrong. They'll go underground and you'll never find them. He nodded slowly. We'll set up surveillance. But I need you to stay out of this. No solo missions. No playing detective. If these people are as dangerous as your sister says, they won't hesitate to hurt you. I opened my mouth to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped me. I'm not your father, he said. I'm not your mother. I'm a cop who's seen too many kids get in over their heads because they thought they could handle it themselves. You're not handling this alone. You're not going to handle it at all. That's not a suggestion. That's an order. I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell him that I'd already handled things alone, in another life, and I'd survived. But I was 17, and he was a detective, and the weight of everything I was carrying pressed down on my shoulders like a physical weight. Fine, I said. But I'm not leaving town. I'm not disappearing. If anything happens, I need to know. He nodded. You'll know. I'll keep you in the loop. But you stay home, you go to school, and you act normal. Can you do that? I thought about it. Normal. Going back to my bedroom, to my textbooks, to the hollowed-out shell of my family home. I thought about my mother's tear-streaked face, and my father's clenched jaw and the shattered coffee mug that was probably still lying on the kitchen floor. I thought about Chloe in her cell, crying and scared and finally telling the truth. I can do that, I said. But even as the words left my mouth, I knew they were a lie. That the walk home was slower than the walk to the station. My legs felt heavy, my feet dragging against the pavement. The sun was high now, blazing down with the kind of heat that made the asphalt shimmer. I passed neighbors mowing their lawns, kids riding bikes, a woman walking her dog. Everyone was going about their business, oblivious to the fact that a bomb had just gone off in my family's life and the shockwaves were spreading. I stopped at the corner and pulled out my phone. The number Chloe had given me stared back from the screen. I could call it. I could pretend to be someone else, someone who wanted to buy exam keys or forge invoices. I could try to get more information out of Marcus, find out who else was involved, what their next move was. Detective Marlowe had told me to stay out of it. But Detective Marlowe didn't know what I knew. He didn't know that Whitfield had been to my house, that he'd sat at our table, that he'd patted my head and called me the quiet one, while he was orchestrating a scheme that would eventually destroy my father's career and my family's stability. I typed the number into my phone but didn't press call. Instead, I sent a text. This is Chloe's sister. I know what you're doing. I know about Whitfield. And I'm giving you one chance to walk away before I bring the whole thing down. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I deleted it and typed another. We need to talk. You know where to find me. I didn't send that one either. I just stood there on the corner, the phone burning in my hand, the weight of 2 lifetimes pressing down on me. The woman walking her dog passed by again, and the dog sniffed at my sneakers, and she smiled and said, "He likes you." I managed a weak smile back. The dog wagged its tail. I bent down and scratched behind its ears, and for a moment, everything was simple. Then my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "We know who you are, Emily. We know what you did. This isn't over. It's just beginning." I read the message 3 times. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. But I didn't delete this one. I saved it. I took a screenshot and sent it to Detective Marlowe. Then I tucked my phone back in my pocket, straightened my shoulders, and started walking home. That the front door was still open. I walked inside and found my mother sitting at the kitchen table, a cold cup of coffee in front of her. The shattered mug was gone, the coffee puddle cleaned up. My father was standing by the window, his back to me. Neither of them turned when I walked in. "The police are going to protect you," I said. "But I need to tell you something. Something about Mr. Whitfield." My father turned around. His face was pale, his eyes hollow. "What about Whitfield?" I took a breath. "He's the one behind it all. He's the one who's been paying Chloe, who's been running the operation. He's been using her, and he's been using you. And now he knows I'm the one who exposed it." My father's face went white. My mother let out a small, choked sound. And then, from outside, we all heard the sound of tires screeching, followed by the slam of a car door. Footsteps on the driveway. A knock on the door that was too sharp, too fast, too insistent. I walked to the door and opened it, and Mr. Whitfield was standing there, his face a mask of calm politeness, a smile on his lips that didn't reach his eyes. "Emily," he said. "I was hoping we could have a little chat." I didn't step aside. I didn't let him in. I stood in the doorway with my hand still on the knob, and I looked at Mr. Whitfield. This man who'd smiled at me across dinner tables, who'd asked about my grades and my hobbies and my plans for college, who'd clapped my father on the back and called him a brother, and I saw him for what he really was. A predator in a tailored suit. A shark who'd been swimming in our waters for years, waiting for the right moment to strike. "Mr. Whitfield," I said, my voice flat. "This isn't a good time." His smile didn't falter. "I'm sure it's not. But I think we both know that waiting isn't going to make things any better." He glanced past me into the house, his eyes scanning the hallway. "Is your father home? I'd like to speak with him as well." I didn't move. Behind me, I heard my father's footsteps approaching, heavy and slow. He appeared in the hallway, his face a mask of controlled fury. And when he saw Whitfield standing on our doorstep, his jaw tightened so hard I could see the muscle twitch. "Philip," Whitfield said, his voice smooth as glass. "I was hoping we could have a conversation. A private one, if you don't mind." My father stepped forward, his hand finding my shoulder. He squeezed once, a silent signal. I stepped back, just enough to let him take my place. But I didn't close the door. I didn't walk away. I stayed right there, in the threshold, watching. "What do you want, Richard?" My father's voice was low and tight. He didn't use Whitfield's title. He didn't offer him a handshake. He just stood there, blocking the entrance with his body, and stared at the man who'd been his mentor for 15 years. Whitfield's smile faded just a fraction. I think you know what I want. I want to clear this up. There's been a misunderstanding, and I'd like to resolve it before things get out of hand. A misunderstanding, my father repeated. His voice was flat, disbelieving. You've been using my daughter. You've been running some kind of operation out of my firm, and you want to call it a misunderstanding. Whitfield's eyes flicked to me, then back to my father. I think we should continue this conversation inside. The neighbors don't need to hear this. I stepped forward, inserting myself between them. Mr. Whitfield, if you have something to say, you can say it right here. In front of me. In front of my mother, who's standing in the kitchen, and can hear every word. Because I'm not going to let you pull my father aside and spin some story that makes you look like the victim. Whitfield's composure cracked just slightly. His smile tightened. Emily, you're a bright young woman. I've always thought that. But you're also young, and you don't understand the full picture. There are things going on that are bigger than your family, bigger than this house, bigger than the charges my sister is facing. I cut him off. Bigger than the evidence the police have on you right now, bigger than the warehouse on Mercer Street where your man Marcus is supposed to meet her tomorrow night. I paused, letting the words land. I know a lot more than you think I do, Mr. Whitfield. And I'm not afraid to use it. For a split second, the mask slipped. I saw something in his eyes. Not fear, exactly, but calculation. He was reassessing me, recalibrating his approach. Then the mask was back, smooth and practiced. I don't know what you're talking about, he said. But I can see you're upset. Perhaps we should postpone this conversation until you've had a chance to calm down. We're not postponing anything, my father said. You're going to get in your car, and you're going to leave, and you're going to stay away from my family. You hear me, Richard, stay away. Whitfield held up his hands in a placating gesture. I'm not your enemy, Philip. I'm the one who's been protecting you all these years. Do you think your promotion would have gone through without my support? Do you think the board would have even considered your name if I hadn't been pushing for you behind the scenes? He lowered his hands, his voice softening. I've been your advocate. I've been your partner. And now, because of a misunderstanding with your daughter, you're willing to throw all of that away. I felt a surge of anger so hot it burned. You've been protecting him, I said, my voice rising. You've been using him. You've been using Chloe, you've been using the firm, and you've been lining your pockets while my family falls apart. Don't stand on my doorstep and pretend you're the good guy. Whitfield looked at me, and for the first time he didn't bother with the smile. Emily, he said, his voice cold, you're making a mistake, a very big mistake. And if you keep pushing, you're going to regret it. I stared back at him. I already regret a lot of things, Mr. Whitfield. But standing up to you isn't going to be one of them. He held my gaze for a long moment. Then he turned and walked back to his car, a sleek black sedan with tinted windows. He got in, closed the door, and drove off without another word. Did I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding? My father put a hand on my shoulder, squeezing hard. You shouldn't have done that, he said. His voice was strained, trembling. He's dangerous, Emily. I didn't realize how dangerous until just now. I know, I said. That's why I did it. He needs to know that we're not going to back down. We walked back inside. My mother was standing in the kitchen doorway, her face pale and drawn. He's gone, she asked. Did he say anything else? He said enough, I replied. And he's not done. He's not going to just walk away. He's going to try to bury us, and we need to be ready. My father sat down heavily at the table, his head in his hands. What are we going to do? We don't have the money for a legal battle. We don't have the connections. He's going to destroy us. I sat down across from him. We're not going to fight him with money and connections, I said. We're going to fight him with the truth. Detective Marlowe is already involved. The police are watching him. And I have evidence that he can't explain away. My mother looked at me, her eyes wide. Evidence? What kind of evidence? I hesitated. I hadn't told them the full extent of what I'd done. I hadn't told them about the backup drive I'd made before my previous life ended. The one I'd kept hidden in a safe deposit box with my name on it. I hadn't told them about the years I'd spent piecing together the fragments of Whitfield's operation. The long nights I'd spent compiling spreadsheets and timestamps and phone records until I had a picture so complete that it would make a prosecutor's jaw drop. In my previous life, I'd never used that evidence. I'd been too scared, too broken, too convinced that no one would believe me. But this time, I'd already started the process. I have documents, I said. Bank records, encrypted messages, invoices. Everything I need to prove that Whitfield was the mastermind. I've already given some of it to Detective Marlowe, but there's more. A lot more. My father stared at me. How did you get all of that, Emily? You're 17. You've been in high school. I've been paying attention, I said. The same way I paid attention to Chloe. The same way I paid attention to everything. I took a breath. Dad, I know you don't understand. I know this is hard. But I need you to trust me. Please. For once in your life, just trust me. There was a long silence. My mother reached out and took my hand. We do trust you, she said quietly. We just don't understand how you got here. How you became this. I squeezed her hand. I had a lot of time to think, I said. And I realized that the only way to save our family was to stop pretending everything was fine. My father stood up abruptly. His chair scraped against the floor, and he walked to the window, staring out at the street. What do you need us to do? The question hung in the air. I thought about everything that was coming, the police investigation, the legal battles, the media attention. I thought about Chloe sitting in a cell, waiting for her fate. I thought about Whitfield already regrouping, already planning his next move. And I thought about the warehouse on Mercer Street, the meeting that was supposed to happen tomorrow night, the door that was about to close on this whole operation. I need you to stay here, I said. I need you to be ready for whatever comes. And I need you to promise me that you won't try to fix this on your own. We're in this together now. All of us. My father turned away from the window. His eyes were red, but his voice was steady. Promise, he said. That I stood up. I have to go out. There's someone I need to see. My mother's grip tightened on my hand. Emily, please. It's not safe. Whitfield just showed up at our house. He knows where we live. He could have people watching us right now. I know, I said. That's why I have to go. If I stay here, I'm just waiting for him to make the first move. And I can't do that. I can't wait anymore. I pulled my hand free and walked to the front door. My father called after me, his voice sharp with worry. Emily, where are you going? I paused at the door. To see a friend, I said. Someone who can help. I left before they could ask any more questions. The walk to the bus stop was quick, my pace brisk, my eyes scanning the street for any sign of Whitfield or his people. The bus was empty when it came, and I sat in the back, my phone clutched in my hand. The number Chloe had given me burning a hole in my memory. I didn't call it. Not yet. I needed to see this through in person. The address I had was for a small apartment on the other side of town, a place I'd never been to but had memorized from the records I'd compiled. The person I was looking for was a woman named Maya, a former employee of Whitfield's firm who'd been fired under suspicious circumstances 6 months ago. In my previous life, she'd come forward as a whistleblower. But she'd been discredited, ignored, driven out of the city by the pressure. This time, I was going to make sure she got heard that the apartment building was a faded brick structure with a buzzer that didn't work. I pushed through the door and climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor, my heart pounding. Maya's door was at the end of the hall, and I knocked softly at first, then harder. The door opened a crack. A woman's face appeared, her eyes wary, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Who are you? She asked. How did you get in here? Maya, my name is Emily Chen. I'm the sister of Chloe Chen. I need to talk to you about Whitfield. Her face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know anyone named Whitfield. Please, I said. I know he fired you. I know you have documents that prove what he's been doing. I've already given some of them to the police, but I need your help. I need you to come forward. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she opened the door just wide enough for me to slip inside. The apartment was small and cluttered, boxes stacked against the walls, a laptop open on the kitchen table. She gestured for me to sit, and I did, my hands shaking. How did you find me? She asked. No one knows I live here. I changed my number. I changed everything. I have resources, I said. And I've been following this case for a long time. I know what Whitfield did to you. I know he threatened you, made you sign a non-disclosure agreement, Made you disappear. But he can't keep doing this to people. He can't keep ruining lives. Maya sat down across from me, her eyes searching my face. You're just a kid, she said. What are you even doing here? You should be in school. You should be. I should be a lot of things, I cut her off. But right now, I'm the only person who's willing to fight this fight. And I need you to help me. Please. She was quiet for a long time. Then she stood up, walked to the laptop and opened a file. I have everything, she said quietly. Every email, every bank transfer, every conversation. I recorded everything. I was planning to take it to the FBI, but I got scared. I thought if I came forward, he'd make good on his threats. But I can't live like this anymore. She turned to look at me. Your sister. Is she really in custody? Yes, I said. She's cooperating with the police. She told them everything. Maya nodded slowly. Then maybe it's time I did the same. We talked for an hour. She showed me the files, the timelines, the connections I hadn't even known existed. Whitfield wasn't just running a small-time operation out of the firm. He was connected to a network of people, lawyers, accountants, even a few politicians, who had been skimming money and covering it up for years. Chloe's involvement had been just the tip of the iceberg. By the time I left, my head was spinning. I had more evidence than I knew what to do with. I had names, dates, amounts. I had everything I needed to bring Whitfield down for good. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I pulled out my phone and called Detective Marlowe. He answered on the first ring. Emily, what's going on? I've been trying to reach you. I found someone, I said. A former employee of Whitfield's. She has documents. A lot of them. We need to meet. There was a pause. Where are you? I'll come to you. I gave him the address of a coffee shop a few blocks away, then hung up. The walk was quick, my feet carrying me faster than I'd intended. I was running on adrenaline, on fear, on the desperate hope that this time, things would end differently. The coffee shop was quiet, nearly empty. I ordered a tea and sat in the corner waiting. Detective Marlowe arrived within 15 minutes, his suit rumpled, his eyes tired but alert. He sat down across from me, and I slid my phone across the table, the files I'd copied from Maya's laptop ready to view. I need you to look at these, I said. And I need you to promise me that you're going to act on them. Tonight. Because if you wait, Whitfield is going to disappear. He scrolled through the files, his expression growing grimmer with each page. This is massive, he said finally. This is bigger than anything I anticipated. Then you need to move, I said. The warehouse meeting is tomorrow night. If we wait, we lose him. Detective Marlowe looked up at me. Emily, I told you to stay out of this. I told you. And I told you I wasn't going to just sit around and wait for things to happen. I interrupted. This is my family. My sister. My life. I'm not going to let him take any more of it. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he nodded. I'll have a team ready by midnight. We're going to raid that warehouse tonight. But I need you to promise me something. What? That you're not going to be there. You're going to go home, you're going to stay with your family, and you're going to let us do our jobs. Can you do that? I wanted to say no. I wanted to be there, to watch it all unfold, to see the look on Whitfield's face when he realized it was over. But I knew he was right. I'd done enough. Fine, I said. I'll go home. He stood up, pocketing the files. I'll call you when it's done. I watched him leave, then sat in the coffee shop for a long time, staring at the cup of tea I'd barely touched. The hours stretched out, slow and agonizing. I checked my phone obsessively, waiting for any sign that something was happening. Then around midnight it buzzed. Detective Marlowe's name flashed on the screen. I answered, my voice barely a whisper. Did you get him? There was a pause. Then his voice, heavy and careful. We got the warehouse. We got Marcus. But Whitfield wasn't there. He knew we were coming, Emily. Someone tipped him off. The words hit me like a freight train. What, how, who? Another pause. We're not sure yet. But we found something else. A message, addressed to you. It was left at your house, Emily. On your front door. You need to come home. Now. The bus ride home felt endless. Every stop, every red light, every second that ticked by stretched into an eternity. I sat in the back, my phone clutched in my hand, Detective Marlowe's words echoing in my head. Someone tipped him off. Someone knew we were coming. And whoever it was had left something on my front door. Something meant for me. I ran the last 2 blocks. My sneakers slapped against the pavement, my breath coming in ragged gasps, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my temples. The street was quiet, the houses dark, the only light coming from the flickering street lamp at the corner. But as I rounded the bend, I saw it. Our front door, illuminated by the porch light, and pinned to the wood with a single knife was a piece of paper that I stopped dead. The knife was small, the kind you'd use to open boxes, but the blade was buried deep in the wood, sunk so far that the paper was taut against it. The paper itself was white, unmarked on the outside, but I could see writing bleeding through from the other side. My hands were shaking as I walked toward it, my feet moving like they were wading through concrete. I reached out, pulled the knife free, and unfolded the paper. The message was short, handwritten in sharp, jagged letters. Asterisk, you should have stayed quiet, Emily. Now everyone pays. Asterisk, I read it 3 times. 4 times. The words didn't change. They just sat there, stark and ugly, a threat so direct that it left no room for interpretation. My mother's car was in the driveway. My father's too. The lights were on in the living room. And through the window, I could see shadows moving. They were home. They were waiting for me. And whoever had left this note had known exactly where to find them. I folded the paper and shoved it in my pocket. The knife I left on the porch, its blade glinting under the light. Then I pushed open the door and stepped inside. That the living room was a scene of controlled chaos. My mother was sitting on the couch, her hands wrapped around a mug that looked like it had been empty for hours. My father was pacing by the window, his phone pressed to his ear, his voice low and urgent. Detective Marlowe was standing by the fireplace, his arms crossed, his expression grim. He looked up when I walked in, and the tension in his shoulders eased slightly, but only slightly. Emily, he said. You got my message. Got a lot more than that, I said, pulling the note from my pocket and holding it up. Someone left this on the front door. With a knife. Detective Marlowe crossed the room in 3 quick strides and took the note from my hand. He read it, his jaw tightening. Did you touch the knife? I pulled it out, I said. But I left it on the porch. I didn't think to. Don't worry about it, he cut me off. I'll have forensics take a look. But we need to talk about what happened tonight. My father hung up the phone and turned to face me. His face was pale, his eyes hollow. Emily, what did you do? Detective Marlowe said you were at the warehouse. He said you were involved in the raid. I gave him the information, I said. I told him where to go, who to look for. But I wasn't there. I was at the coffee shop when it happened. I wasn't. But you helped plan it, my father interrupted. You helped them set up the operation. And now Whitfield is in the wind, and there's a knife on our front door, and someone is threatening our family. His voice cracked. You have to stop, Emily. You have to let the police handle this. I stepped toward him, my hands out. Dad, I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But this is exactly what Whitfield wants. He wants us to fall apart. He wants us to be so terrified that we stop fighting. And I'm not going to give him that satisfaction. Detective Marlowe stepped between us, his voice measured and calm. Mr. Chun, your daughter did the right thing tonight. The information she provided led to the arrest of Marcus, and the seizure of evidence that's going to be crucial to this case. Yes, Whitfield slipped through our fingers, but that doesn't mean we're done. It means we need to be more careful, more coordinated, and more vigilant. My father stared at him, his jaw working. And what about my family? What about the knife on my door? What about the threat to my wife and children? We're going to increase the patrols around your house, Detective Marlowe said. We're going to put you under protective watch, at least until Whitfield is in custody. And we're going to make sure that whoever left that note is held accountable. I watched my father's shoulders sag, the fight draining out of him. He walked to the couch and sat down next to my mother, who reached out and took his hand. They looked old suddenly. Hollowed out. I'd done this to them. I'd brought this chaos into their lives. But I'd also been the only one who'd tried to stop the bleeding. I need to go upstairs, I said. I need to check on something. Detective Marlowe nodded. I'll be here when you come down. We have a lot to go over. I walked up the stairs, my legs heavy, my mind racing. The hallway was dark, the only light coming from the open door of my parents' bedroom. Chloe's room was at the end of the hall, her door closed, the police tape still in place from the initial search. I walked past it, my hand brushing the frame, and kept going to my own room. My room was exactly how I'd left it. Lavender walls, boy band poster, textbooks on the floor. But something was different. The window was cracked open, just an inch, the latch not fully engaged. I'd closed it before I left. I was sure I'd closed it. I walked toward it, my heart pounding, and that's when I saw the envelope on my desk. It was white, unmarked, the same kind of paper as the note on the door. I picked it up, my hands trembling, and opened it. Inside was a single photograph. It was me, sitting in the coffee shop, my face illuminated by the glow of my phone. The timestamp in the corner read 11:47 p.m., less than an hour ago. And on the back, in the same jagged handwriting, asterisk, I'm closer than you think. Asterisk. I dropped the photo like it had burned me. My eyes darted to the window, to the darkness beyond. The street was quiet, the neighbor's house dark, the only movement the sway of a tree branch in the breeze. But someone had been watching me. Someone had been following me. And they'd gotten into my room without anyone noticing. I grabbed my phone and called Detective Marlowe. He answered on the second ring. Emily, what is it? He was in my room, I said. He left a photo of me at the coffee shop. He was there. He was watching me. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. Stay where you are. I'm coming up. I didn't move. I just stood there, staring at the photo, my mind spinning. Whitfield hadn't just known about the raid. He'd known where I was. He'd known what I was doing. He'd been watching me the whole time, and I hadn't even noticed. The thought made my stomach turn. Detective Marlowe burst through the door, his hand on his gun. He scanned the room, his eyes landing on the window, the envelope, the photo in my hand. He took it from me carefully, examining it, his expression darkening. This was taken from across the street. There's a building there, an old office complex. He could have been anywhere. But he got into my room, I said. He left this on my desk. He came into my house, detective. He was in my room. Detective Marlowe's jaw tightened. I know. And I'm going to make sure it doesn't happen again. I'm assigning 2 officers to stay here overnight. No one gets in or out without being checked. He looked at me, his eyes hard. You're not going anywhere, Emily. Not without a police escort. That's not a suggestion. I nodded. I was too tired to argue. Too scared. I sat down on the edge of my bed, my legs giving out beneath me, and watched as Detective Marlowe made a series of calls, his voice low and urgent. Within minutes, 2 uniformed officers appeared in the hallway, their presence both reassuring and terrifying. They were here to protect us. But they were here because we needed protecting. I'm going to take the photo and the note to the lab, Detective Marlowe said, slipping both into an evidence bag. We might be able to pull fingerprints, DNA, something that'll lead us to him. In the meantime, you stay in your room. Keep your door locked. And if anything happens, you call me immediately. Do you understand? Yes, I said. I understand. He left, and I was alone. I sat on my bed for a long time, staring at the closed door, the locked window, the shadows that seemed to flicker in the corners of my vision. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Asterisk, did you like the photo? I have more. Asterisk, I didn't respond. I just stared at the screen, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I wanted to delete the message, to pretend it didn't exist. But I knew that would only make it worse. So I took a screenshot, sent it to Detective Marlowe, and typed back. Asterisk, who are you? Asterisk, the response was immediate. Asterisk, you know who I am. And I know who you are, Emily. I know what you did. I know about the spreadsheets, the bank records, the conversations with Maya. I know you think you're going to bring me down. But you're wrong. You're just a girl. And I've been doing this a lot longer than you. Asterisk, I stared at the message, my blood running cold. He knew about Maya. He knew about the spreadsheets. He knew about everything. There was only one way he could have that information. Someone had told him. Someone close to me. Someone who'd been feeding him information the whole time. I thought about Chloe sitting in her cell crying and scared. I thought about Maya, who'd given me everything she had. I thought about my parents, who'd been in the house when Whitfield had come to the door. And I thought about the officers outside, the ones who were supposed to be protecting us. Could one of them be the leak? Could someone on the inside be working for him? The phone buzzed again. Asterisk. I'm going to give you a choice, Emily. You can stop digging. You can go back to your life, your school, your homework, and pretend this never happened. And if you do, I'll leave your family alone. I'll walk away. No one else gets hurt. Or you can keep fighting. And if you do, I'll make sure you regret it. I'll take everything from you. Everyone. And I'll make sure you're there to watch it happen. Asterisk. I read the message 5 times. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the phone against the wall and pretend none of this was real. But I'd already lived through this once. I'd already seen what happened when I did nothing. And I knew with absolute certainty that Whitfield was lying. He wasn't going to walk away. He was going to keep coming. He was going to keep pushing until he destroyed everything we had left. I typed back. Asterisk, you don't scare me. Asterisk. Another immediate response. Asterisk, I should. Because I know something you don't. About your sister. About the night she got arrested. About who she was really working with. And when you find out the truth, you're going to wish you'd never opened your mouth. Asterisk, I stared at the message, my mind racing. What was he talking about? Chloe had already told me everything. She'd admitted to everything. She'd been scared and broken, and she'd given me the number, the warehouse, everything. Or had she left something out? Had she been protecting someone else? I picked up my phone and called Detective Marlowe. He answered on the first ring. Emily, what's wrong? Whitfield just texted me, I said. He's taunting me. And he says he knows something about Chloe. Something I don't know. Something that's going to change everything. There was a long pause. Then slowly Detective Marlowe spoke. Emily, I was going to tell you in the morning. But I think you need to know now. We found something in the warehouse tonight. Something that implicates your sister in more than we initially thought. It wasn't just exam keys and forged invoices. She was involved in something bigger. Something connected to Whitfield's network. And we're not sure how deep it goes. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles went white. What do you mean? She told me everything. She said she was just a pawn. She told you what she wanted you to hear, Detective Marlowe said. But the evidence tells a different story. Emily, we found evidence that your sister was planning to flee the country. She had a fake passport, a ticket to Europe, and a bank account in her name with over $50,000 in it. She wasn't just a pawn. She was a partner. The phone slipped from my fingers and hit the floor with a dull thud. I didn't pick it up. I just stood there, staring at the screen, Detective Marlowe's words echoing in my head. A partner. Chloe wasn't just a pawn. She was a partner. The fake passport. The $50,000. The ticket to Europe. It all clicked into place with a sickening clarity that made my stomach lurch. I'd been so focused on Whitfield. So convinced that Chloe was just a victim, a scared girl who'd gotten in over her head. But she'd been playing me the whole time. She'd given me just enough truth to make me believe her, while hiding the parts that would have exposed her real role. The phone number. The warehouse. Marcus. She'd fed me all of it, piece by piece, like she was reading from a script. And I'd swallowed it whole. I bent down and picked up the phone. Detective Marlowe was still on the line, his voice urgent. Emily. Emily, are you there? I'm here, I said. My voice sounded strange, distant, like it was coming from someone else. I need to see her. I need to talk to her. Emily, that's not a good idea. She's in custody and we're still processing the new evidence. She's not going to be able to. I don't care. I cut him off. I need to see her. Tonight. If you don't take me, I'll find a way to get there myself. And we both know that's not going to end well. There was a long pause. I could hear him breathing, weighing the options. Then he sighed, heavy and resigned. I'll have an officer pick you up in 10 minutes. But Emily, I need you to prepare yourself. She's not going to be the same person you talked to this morning. The mask is off now. And what's underneath isn't pretty. I hung up and stood in the middle of my room, the photo still lying on the desk, the message still burning in my phone. Whitfield had known. He'd known all along. He'd been taunting me with the truth, and I'd been too blind to see it. I walked to the window and looked out at the street below. The police car was still there, 2 officers sitting inside, their faces illuminated by the glow of their dashboard. They were there to protect me. But from what? From the man who was running circles around us. From the sister who'd been lying to my face. The officer arrived in exactly 10 minutes. I walked out of the house without saying goodbye to my parents. They were in the living room, huddled together on the couch, my mother's head on my father's shoulder. They looked up when I passed, but neither of them spoke. They'd seen the look on my face. They knew better than to ask questions. The drive to the station was short and silent. I sat in the back of the cruiser, staring out the window at the darkened streets, my mind churning through every conversation I'd had with Chloe since I'd woken up in this life. Every tear, every confession, every carefully crafted lie. She'd been so good, so convincing. She'd made me believe that she was finally telling the truth, that she was scared and broken and ready to change. And all the while, she'd been playing me for a fool. The station was quiet when I arrived. Detective Marlowe met me at the front desk, his face grim. He led me down the same hallway, past the same interview rooms, to the same metal table where I'd sat just hours earlier. But this time, when the door opened, the person sitting there was a stranger. Chloe looked up at me, and the mask was gone. Her eyes were cold, flat, empty of the fear and vulnerability she'd shown me earlier. She was wearing an orange jumpsuit, her hands cuffed to the table, her hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. She looked smaller than I remembered, but also harder, sharper, like she'd shed a skin and revealed something dangerous underneath. "Emily," she said. Her voice was calm, almost bored. "I was wondering when you'd figure it out." I sat down across from her. The metal chair scraped against the floor, loud and harsh in the silence. "How long?" I asked. "How long were you planning this?" She shrugged, a casual, dismissive gesture that made my blood boil. "Long enough. Longer than you think." She leaned forward, her eyes glinting. "You think I was just some pawn, some scared little girl who got caught up in something she didn't understand? That's what I wanted you to think. That's what I wanted everyone to think. But I've been running this operation for 2 years, Emily. I recruited Marcus. I set up the payments. I was Whitfield's partner, not his puppet." The words hit me like a physical blow. 2 years. She'd been doing this for 2 years, while I'd been trapped in my own head, reliving a life that no one else remembered. She'd been building an empire of lies, and I'd been too busy trying to save her to see the truth. Why, I asked. Why would you do this? We had everything. We had a family, a home, a future. Why would you throw it all away? Chloe laughed, a sharp, brittle sound that echoed off the walls. Throw it all away, Emily, you don't get it. I didn't have anything. I was the golden child, the perfect daughter, the one everyone expected to succeed. But do you know what that feels like, to have everyone's hopes and dreams riding on your shoulders, to know that if you fail, you'll disappoint everyone you love? I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I couldn't be myself because myself wasn't good enough. So you turned to crime, I said. You threw your life away because you felt pressure. She leaned back in her chair, a cold smile playing on her lips. I turned to money. Lots of it. And power. And control. For the first time in my life, I was the one calling the shots. I was the one who decided what happened when it happened and who got hurt. And you know what? It felt good. It felt right. I stared at her, trying to reconcile the person in front of me with the sister I'd grown up with. The sister who'd held my hand at our grandmother's funeral. The sister who'd taught me how to ride a bike. The sister who'd cried with me when I got my heart broken. Was any of it real? Or had she been playing a role all along? The passport, I said. The $50,000. You were going to run. Chloe's smile widened. I was going to run. I was going to disappear, start a new life, never look back. And I would have gotten away with it too, if you hadn't stuck your nose where it didn't belong. She leaned forward again, her voice dropping to a whisper. You ruined everything, Emily. Everything I built. Everything I worked for. And for what? So you could play the hero, so you could prove that you're better than me. I felt a surge of anger so hot it made my hands shake. I wasn't trying to be better than you, I said. I was trying to save you. I was trying to save our family. And you threw it all away because you couldn't be bothered to tell the truth. Save me, Chloe laughed again, louder this time. You don't get to save me, Emily. You don't get to be the hero of a story you don't even understand. I was doing what I had to do, what I was born to do. And if you'd stayed out of it, I would have been fine. But you couldn't stay out of it, could you? You always have to be the center of attention. Always have to be the one who fixes everything. But you can't fix this. You can't fix me. I wanted to argue. I wanted to scream at her, shake her, make her understand the damage she'd done. But I looked into her eyes, and I saw something that stopped me cold. She didn't care. She'd never cared. She'd been using me the same way she'd used everyone else. And she had no intention of stopping. That I stood up abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. I'm done, I said. I'm done trying to save you. I'm done fighting for someone who doesn't want to be saved. You want to rot in here? Fine. You want to throw away everything we ever had? Fine. But I'm not going to be a part of it anymore. I'm done. Chloe's smile faded. For a split second, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Was it regret, fear, loneliness? But then the mask was back, cold and hard and impenetrable. You're walking away, she said. Just like that. After everything I've done for you. You've never done anything for me, I said. You've only ever done things to me. And I'm tired of pretending it's the same thing. I walked out of the room and didn't look back. The door closed behind me with a heavy thud, and I stood in the hallway, my chest heaving, my heart pounding. Detective Marlowe was waiting for me, his expression unreadable. You okay? He asked. No, I said. But I will be. He nodded and led me to a small office down the hall. The walls were bare, the furniture sparse, the only decoration a framed photo of his family on the desk. He gestured for me to sit, and I did, my legs finally giving out beneath me. Whitfield is still out there, he said. But we're getting closer. Marcus has started talking. He's giving us names, locations, contacts. We're going to find him, Emily. It's just a matter of time. I nodded, too exhausted to feel anything but numb. What happens now? I asked. With Chloe. She's facing serious charges. Fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. She's not going to walk away from this. But the trial is going to take months, maybe longer. And Whitfield is going to be a part of it. He's going to try to twist everything, make it seem like she was the mastermind and he was just a victim. We need to be ready for that. I thought about it. The trial. The media. The endless cycle of accusations and counter-accusations. In my previous life, I'd watched it all from the sidelines, too broken to participate. But this time, I had a voice. And I wasn't going to let anyone silence me. I'll testify, I said. I'll tell them everything. Everything I know, everything I've seen. I'll make sure they understand the truth. Detective Marlowe looked at me, his eyes softening. That's brave of you. But it's also going to be hard. They're going to try to tear you apart on the stand. They're going to question your motives, your credibility, your sanity. Are you ready for that? I thought about it. About Whitfield's smug face, Chloe's cold eyes, the endless nights I'd spent piecing together the fragments of their operation. I thought about my parents, huddled together on the couch, scared and confused. I thought about the life I'd left behind, the one I'd been given a second chance to fix. I'm ready, I said. I've been ready my whole life. He nodded and stood up. I'll drive you home. You need to rest. The drive back was quiet. The streets were empty, the houses dark, the only light coming from the occasional street lamp. I leaned my head against the window and watched the world go by. My mind finally quiet. I'd done what I came here to do. I'd exposed the truth, even when it hurt. I'd stood up to Chloe, even when she'd tried to tear me down. And I'd made it clear that I wasn't going to be a pawn in anyone's game. When we pulled into my driveway, the house was dark. The police car was still there, the officers still inside, but the windows of the house were black. I walked to the front door, my footsteps echoing in the silence, and let myself in. My parents were asleep on the couch, my mother's head on my father's shoulder, a blanket draped over both of them. They looked peaceful, for the first time in days. I walked past them, up the stairs to my room. The photo was still on my desk, the message still on my phone. I picked them both up, stared at them for a long moment, and then I made a decision. I deleted the message. I tore up the photo. And I walked to the window and opened it, letting in the cool night air. The street was quiet, the neighbor's house dark, the only movement the sway of a tree branch in the breeze. Somewhere out there Whitfield was still watching, but I didn't care anymore. I'd done what I could. I'd fought as hard as I could fight. And now it was time to let the system do its job. I closed the window and locked it. Then I walked to my bed, lay down and closed my eyes. For the first time since I'd woken up in this life, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: peace. The next few weeks were a blur of court appearances and media coverage, and endless conversations with lawyers. Whitfield was caught 3 days later, trying to cross the border into Canada with a fake passport and a suitcase full of cash. He was arrested without incident, and the case against him was so strong that his lawyers didn't even try to fight it. He pled guilty to all charges and was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. Chloe's trial was more complicated. She tried to pin everything on Whitfield, but the evidence was too overwhelming. She was convicted on multiple counts and sentenced to 8 years. My parents testified at both trials. My mother, her voice shaking, told the court about the daughter she'd lost. My father, his jaw tight, told them about the partner who'd betrayed him. And me, I told them the truth. About the secrets, the lies, the countless chances I'd given her to come clean. I told them about the night I'd walked into the kitchen and watched everything fall apart. And I told them about the second chance I'd been given, the one I'd used to fight for my family. The day after the trial ended, I walked to the bus stop and took the bus to the other side of town. Maya's apartment was still there, the faded brick building with the broken buzzer. I climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor and knocked on her door. She opened it, her eyes wary, but when she saw me she smiled. "Emily," she said, "I heard about the trial. I'm so sorry." "Don't be," I said. "It's over. It's finally over." She let me in, and we sat in her cluttered kitchen, drinking tea and talking about the future. She was planning to move back to her hometown, to start over, to rebuild her life. I told her I was planning to go back to school, to finish my senior year, to figure out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. It felt strange, planning for the future after spending so long fighting for the present. But it also felt good. It felt right. When I walked out of her apartment, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I stood on the sidewalk and watched the colors change, the way they always did, and I felt a sense of calm that I hadn't felt in 2 lifetimes. I pulled out my phone and called my mother. "Mom," I said, "I'm coming home." "I'll have dinner ready," she said. "Your father's making his famous spaghetti. We're going to be okay, Emily. We're going to be okay." I smiled, the first real smile I'd smiled in a long time. "Yeah," I said. "We are." I walked home through the quiet streets, past the houses with their lights on, past the family sitting down to dinner, past the life I'd been given a second chance to live. And when I walked through the front door, my parents were waiting for me, their arms open, their faces lit with love. We sat down to dinner, the 3 of us, and we talked about the future, about school, about work, about the plans we were making. It was simple and ordinary and perfect. And as I sat there, my mother's hand on mine, my father's laughter filling the room, I knew that I'd finally done it. I'd broken the cycle. I'd saved my family. And I'd found my way home.